Dear participants, good afternoon. I am Dr. Roger Chao Jr., Assistant Director and Head of Education, Youth, and Sports Division of the ASEAN Secretariat. Thank you for taking time to listen and participate in this conference. I was tasked to talk about education cooperation in ASEAN. Before explaining and putting in examples of the various education cooperation that we have, let me give you a broad description of what ASEAN is. ASEAN is a community of 10 Southeast Asian nations. Furthermore, we are working towards building an ASEAN community. An ASEAN community composed of 3 pillars: the ASEAN Political Security Community, the ASEAN Economic Community, and the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, where my division, Education, Youth, and Sports Division, belongs. Now, when we talk about education, we have to remember that education cuts across various sectors. In fact, the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals highlighted that education cuts across all 17 goals. Similarly, education is a key component in the ASEAN community building project. ASEAN does not work alone. It's not only the 10 ASEAN member states, but we work with dialogue partners. We also work within frameworks. The ASEAN plus 3 frameworks, which is the 10 ASEAN member states, plus China, Japan, and Korea, and the East Asian Summit, which brings together a total of 18 countries. We also have dialogue partners, where we have strategic comprehensive partnerships or cooperation agreements. Given that broad understanding, education cooperation has taken different forms, taking into consideration that it's not only the ASEAN cooperation funds, which is basically funds parked with ASEAN to do projects which fits to the priorities of the dialogue partner and ASEAN. Furthermore, resource mobilization and joint projects, joint events are also being undertaken. These are also forms of cooperation in education. Now, let me give you key areas of collaboration in education, taking into consideration that education is not limited to basic education or higher education or TVET. It starts with early childhood care and development, all the way to higher education, but it is also framed within a lifelong learning framework. We have not started a lot of early childhood care and education and development recently, but we are going to develop something together with partners. Basic education, particularly the past 2 years with the COVID pandemic, came out with significant challenges, with school being closed, a learning crisis which started even before the pandemic came in, and the sudden need for resilience. As such, one of the key partnerships over the past years has been the development of the Reopen, Recover, Resilience and Education guidelines for ASEAN countries. These guidelines put forth medium and long-term recommendations to ensure safe school reopening, alternatives and initiatives for learning recovery, and how to build resilience in education systems, taking into consideration the need for inclusiveness, equity, and leaving no one behind. The guidelines was spearheaded by Cambodia with support from the ASEAN Secretariat and particularly from UNICEF, East Asia and Pacific Regional Office. The guideline has been launched during the Asia Pacific Education Ministers Conference in June. And after the guidelines was launched, discussions with key stakeholders on how to operationalize it and implement it has been discussed, and Cambodia started initiating self-assessment utilizing the tools provided by the guidelines and recommended other ASEAN member states to do so. Another form of education partnership focused on education, particularly in basic education, has been the joint event by UNICEF, UNESCO, SIMIO, the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, and ASEAN Secretariat, particularly Education, Youth, and Sports Division. We came out with a joint event focused particularly on two key areas: out-of-school children and youth, and digital transformation. This side event highlights how South-South cooperation and collaboration can come out with creative tools and initiatives that address key issues. This was a side event of the UN hosted and organized Global South-South Development Expo. This is also a way to showcase education cooperation and the various initiatives that the various partner organizations intend to do or are currently doing. TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training. Taking into consideration that TVET is not only the training sector, but also includes part of the higher education sector. Furthermore, we have to consider upper secondary education also has a TVET component or a TVET track. What cooperation do we do? Korea has been supporting ASEAN Secretariat and ASEAN member states in looking at the challenges brought about by the need for new skills, reskilling, upskilling, and particularly not only to address the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, but also to acquire and address the challenges of the rapidly changing world of work. There is also a need to address quality assurance and recognition at the regional level. Korea has embarked on a project looking at looking at key thematic issues or focus on key TVET sectors that has been identified by ASEAN member states, and looking at developing model courses and training. So this is just one of it. The German government through GIZ has been supporting the TVET sector in ASEAN for more than a decade. The RICO TVET project has enhanced on the establishment of the ASEAN TVET Council, which is a multi-sectoral body to look into how to advance TVET in the region. It has also supported enhancing linkages and bringing in the private sector to address quality and relevance of TVET courses and training in the ASEAN region. Mobility has also been supported in the TVET sector, both by Korea and GIZ. In higher education, the European Union, through the EU support for higher education in ASEAN program, which started in 2015, has been supporting the ASEAN higher education sector, covering key results area from quality assurance, qualifications framework, mobility, policy dialogues, and developing tools to enhance credit transfers and recognition in the region. This consortium is composed of the British Council, DAAD, and NOFIC, of course, with other partners as well. In higher education, 2022 saw a significant partnership between the ASEAN Secretariat, the SHARE program, CMEO RIHED, which is the CMEO Regional Center responsible for higher education, Asia Europe Foundation, the HEAD Foundation, UNESCO, and other partners, has been developing and implementing policy dialogues looking at the development of a Southeast Asian higher education space. Aside from that, the US government, through the US Prospect Program, has been supporting the ASEAN Secretariat in developing the training of trainers to address misinformation and combating and promoting media and information literacy, taking into consideration that media and information literacy is very important not only for the education sector but for the youth sector. This is especially the case where there is a significant development and advancement of digital technologies, the growth of social media, and information that can be retrieved from various platforms. Now, as we talk about social media and digital literacy, there is also an ongoing project that is being discussed for funding on digital literacy. This will be in partnership with UNICEF and other partners, but the discussion for funding is still ongoing. This particular project looks into the use of digital technologies to reach the unreached, but this is focused on basic education. One of the key developments this year in the ASEAN education sector is the adoption of the Declaration of Digital Transformation of Education Systems in ASEAN. The development of this declaration has been a partnership between ASEAN member states, but this is led by the Philippines, supported significantly by UNICEF, East Asia and the Pacific Regional Office, and the ASEAN Secretariat. The development of this declaration is a result of the need to address challenges of quality and relevance of education across the entire education sector. But it also addresses the challenges of the changing world of work, the fourth industrial revolution, and the fact that society has been changing significantly, the growth of social media, the impact of digital technologies and ICT in our daily lives. As such, ASEAN aims to become a leading digital society. This is seen in particular in the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2025. Across all of ASEAN's documents and policies is a centrality of inclusion and equity and partnership. Education follows the same principles. We look towards increasing inclusiveness and equity and conceptualizing it within lifelong learning framework as seen in the ASEAN Work Plan for Education 2021-2025. At the regional level, ASEAN has an ASEAN plus 3 working group on student mobility and quality assurance. The working group has been discussing on how to improve student mobility, but at the same time, how to enhance quality assurance and recognition and promote mobility within the ASEAN Plus 3 region. Guidelines on student mobility has been developed and currently being revised. It has been developed in 2015, and the changing environment, particularly the increasing need and utility of digital technologies in education, is being incorporated in the revised guideline. Quality assurance in Southeast Asia, in the ASEAN region, is being driven by the ASEAN quality assurance network, which accredits quality assurance agencies in Southeast Asia across the ASEAN member states. ACWAN has also been working with various partners and significantly supported by the European Union, also through the SHARE program. Education cooperation in ASEAN education sector can also be seen with the various partnerships under the ASEAN University Network, where scholarships, research partnerships, not only among member universities of the ASEAN University Network, but also from dialogue partners, exchanges for students, research collaboration, and fellowships has been undertaken. As such, partnerships and education cooperation in ASEAN is anchored on a common understanding and interests of the dialogue partner, ASEAN, particularly ASEAN member states, and also the various regional and international organizations. The Education, Youth, and Sports Division has also been discussing with the Global Partnership of Education, particularly in advocacy. And in my capacity as head of the Education, Youth, and Sports sector, I committed to support the advocacy work of GPE and, of course, other education organizations regionally, internationally, as the core messages from these organizations are very important and significant to the ASEAN region. Ladies and gentlemen, there are simply too many things when we're talking about education cooperation. The important thing there is building inclusive, equitable, and complementary partnerships between dialogue partners, ASEAN member states, ASEAN, and the various stakeholders. We are also looking into how to engage the various stakeholders and change, or at least looking into how to reform higher education to make education programs more relevant to the needs of the industry. However, we have to understand that education is not only to prepare students and graduates for the world of work, but to prepare them to be a global citizen and contribute to global developments, regional developments, and ensure that we all contribute to building a peaceful and sustainable global and regional community. Thank you very much, and I hope my words would get you to recognize that cooperation is very important in education, but also in other sectors. Thank you.